And yeah, if you look at the hair, you can see it's a little wild because I have a little bit of a wild hair up my butt right now. And that has to deal with AMD and their recent release of the Radeon R9 290X. Now, just so everybody knows, High-Tech Legion went out and bought a retail version of this card. Because ever since LA, which was probably back in about 2009, when the 6000 series card came out, AMD decided that they didn't want to deal directly with High-Tech Legion anymore. Now, let's not say AMD computers. I mean AMD as in ATI, their video card division. Basically, I called them out on something. They told me that I was an NVIDIA fanboy, and ever since then, things stopped. There was no communication between myself and ATI. I recently tried to contact them. I sent them multiple emails without any response to it, because I wanted to tell them that I am getting these cards from their partners. Now, this specific card I went out and purchased. It is by ASUS, and this has nothing to do with ASUS. So just so everybody knows, because ASUS will be coming out with their own version of this card on their own PCB. It's probably going to be a lot more money because you're going to pay for the extra cooling and stuff like that. But I wanted to get a reference design so I could compare apples to apples when it comes to this card and the 780 Ti by NVIDIA that will be launched tomorrow. So, just to show you, here is the box. I have the box, I have the card. Now, hopefully AMD will talk to me, but evidently they don't want to. Because the reason why they don't like to send me reference cards is because High-Tech Legion is unbiased. And we will point out the obvious when it comes to it. And they don't appreciate that. Now, I have reported things about NVIDIA in the past that I didn't appreciate, and I never had a problem. So, what's going on, AMD, or ATI, so should I say? You don't want to speak to me? Why? Most of the time, they tell me that my website's not big enough. But considering that our network is fairly large now, that's not an excuse anymore. The excuse is they know if they don't send me a reference card, I have to review one of their partners' cards, which normally has aftermarket cooling, has aftermarket PCB, etc. So can I base any type of judgment on how the actual release card is, the reference board, compared to its competitor? No. What I need to do is I need to review their partner cards for what they did to that specific graphics card to make it better than a reference board. But now we're comparing reference to reference here, and I will say this to all of you. If you went out and bought this card right now, you might want to think twice and wait. Why? Because it's a failure. It's a flop. They might seem like harsh words. I don't feel that they're harsh words. Because technically, when I buy a video card, no matter if it's a reference or if it's an aftermarket type video card, I want it to perform out of the box, and I want performance that is going to be on a level plane. Meaning, so when my card gets hot, I'm not going to lose frame rates. It's not going to throttle down on me that much. Well, evidently AMD didn't put much thought into their GPU boost. The other thing is on this specific card, I do have a press deck from AMD, and if you look up over here to the left, you're going to see that it says that the GPU clock is actually up to. And when I say up to, it doesn't say what the base clock is and what the boost clock is. It says up to 1 megahertz. Or I mean 1 gigahertz, I'm sorry. So that would be 1,000 megahertz. So you tell me, up to? So basically all they could say is, well, we did say up to, so if it throttles down to 1 megahertz, We said up to. It's another play on words. The same thing that they did when they had a problem with their Power Hog 7000 series, and they started saying, oh, it's the gaming TDP. They didn't want everybody to know what the actual TDP, which was about 25 to 40 watts higher than the actual gaming TDP was, because even NVIDIA doesn't want us using like Furmark or Oct anymore because of, you know, the power limiters on these things, because they kind of kill the cards. So if you want to talk about a gaming TDP opposed to the actual overall TDP, we've got problems here. Now you're playing with words. So are you trying to dupe the people who are buying your cards? Now, I do want to give a shout out to one of our Facebook users, and I'm looking over on my laptop so I make sure that I get his name correctly. Kevin Harpster, hopefully you're watching this video. I'm going to answer your question. Yes, gamers buy reference boards. This is why most of the time these boards are sold out. They're very hard to find. I had to wait to get mine. So yes, gamers do buy reference boards. So yes, it does matter. Because your question was, why does it matter? A gamer's not going to buy a reference card. Yes, gamers buy reference cards. So without further ado, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to put this in the system. We're going to look at a few different things. Number one, we're going to look at the performance when it's cold. So basically, we'll see what it will do when it's actually hitting 1000 megahertz. Then we're going to run it for a while, let it warm up, and we'll see how well it performs. I'm also going to let you guys listen to the fan on this. And I will tell you this much. I'm going to be screaming when I put it up to 100% because you can't hear yourself think. So let's go ahead, let's put it on the test bench, and I'm not even going to put it in a case because I don't want anybody telling me that, oh, you put it in a case, it's probably all the fans in the case that is making this louder. It's going to be on a test bench, everybody, and I'm going to show it to you on the test bench, and I'm going to show it to you when it's idle, and we're going to take a look at it. So we'll be right back. Remember, this is AMD 290X fail. Okay, everyone. Let's start out with GPU tweak. So, as you can see, the GPU clock, the memory clock, the power target, and the fan speed, everything is set to its baseline properties. I didn't tweak anything, I didn't touch anything. This is default settings, so we're going to go ahead and run default settings. Now, before any of you naysayers say anything to me, yes, this does have two different types of fan speeds. You have quiet mode and ultimate mode. And I will tell you this much, when you are going on ultimate mode, you'll know why you don't want to use ultimate mode with this, because, again, like I said, if you're married, if you're at home, your parents, whatever, I don't care if you have your door closed, they're going to hear it next door in the house next door. So you really want to keep this on quiet while you're gaming, especially in the middle of the night, because the fan is going to get loud. So we're at a base temperature at idle at 43 degrees Celsius. As you can see, I didn't play with anything. Let's go ahead and open Unigen. We're going to run it at 2560 by 1600 in windowed mode. Of course, it's going to be on an ultra quality and extreme tessellation with 4x anti-aliasing. So I'll go ahead and start it up. And what we're looking for is, I'm going to do one run for you and show you what the frame rates were on run 1. Now, what we're going to see is by the time we end this benchmark, that our clock speeds, which is right down here, your GPU clock starts at 1000, are probably going to be down somewhere in the 800 range, or maybe even lower. So I'll go ahead and start the benchmark. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it run for a couple seconds, let you watch it. You can still see that base clock down there on the bottom. It's still running at 1,000. It's going through its sequence. So this does take a little while to run. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. When it gets close to the end, I will go ahead and bring it back up, and we'll take a look at where our clock speeds are, where our temperatures are, etc. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're now towards the end of the sequence, and you'll see it dipped as low as 842, and that's what it's running at, 840 now. The sequence is over. So we've already lost 1,000, almost 800. We almost lost 200 megahertz there. You see 798. I'm not lying. This thing that will go down to 750. All right. As per the benchmark, this is the number that we get, 31.3. So while it's still running and while it's still hot, we're going to go ahead and close this. Now I'm going to go ahead and, just so you know that I'm not doing anything, I'm going to re-benchmark it while it's still hot. As you can see, we're at a GPU temp of 94 Celsius. You saw that we were as low as 798. Right now it's going down to 882. I will go ahead and let this run. I'll bring it back up and maybe sequence 22 or 23 so we can watch the clock speeds a little bit better. But right now also, if you didn't notice, the fan speed is at about 40 to 42%. It's not that loud right now. You could barely hear it. It's reasonable, but you will see later what I'm talking about. So we'll go ahead and shut this off for now. We'll be back when I get to about, say, 22 or 23 of the 26 in this sequence. Okay, now we're in about scene 23 of the 26. So I'll go bring this over. We'll bring GPU tweak to the front. We're down about 890, 842. The fan speed, of course, is over 20%. It's actually up to 42. For some reason, it just dropped back down. And believe me when I tell you, that is not correct. It is at 40%. We're down to 821, 825, 837. Still at 94 Celsius. And we have 28.7 frames per second. So basically, I'll let you guys do the math. How many frames did you lose? And now this is the big thing about this. If you're using multiple monitors to game, just say Ifinity. What is going to happen as you increase your resolution? You're going to lose frame rates. So if I'm at 25 by 16 right now, and I'm getting 28.7 frames a second, now I go ahead and put 3 monitors on here and bring my resolution up, whether it be 1080 or whatever. It's, you know, so you're figuring what, 19 times 3, 38, what is that, 40, 44, 45 something. So basically what you're going to be looking at is a decreased frame rate. So now we might get down into less than 25, into the 20s, where it's not a playable frame rate. So I understand that this is a synthetic benchmark, so I want to show you a benchmark that basically is going to deal with gaming, real-time gaming, and we'll take a look at that. And hopefully when I reboot GPU tweak here, the fan speed will be showing correct. So we'll go ahead and try to get that fixed for you also, so you can actually see the fan speed on it. So I'm going to go ahead and let this cool down for a little bit. We'll be right back. We're back. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run the benchmark that's in Metro Last Light. This is an actual game. It's not a synthetic. So those of you who said, well, Paul, you ran a synthetic benchmark, no wonder why it did that. Well, I'm going to run an actual game. This is going to be a sequence that is actually part of the game engine. So we'll try to quell what all these naysayers might be saying. So we have 25 by 16 again, Quality is very high. Texture filtering, we have AF at 4x. Motion blur is low and tessellation is high. Now what we're looking for is it's going to run 3 times. So what we're looking for is a consistent frame rate through all 3 segments, all 3 runs, so you know that you're not losing, as you're gaming, when the card heats up, that you're not losing any frames per second. So this does take a while to run. I'm going to start it up for you guys. I'm going to then shut the camera off. When it's at the end of the 3rd run, I'll bring it back up and we'll go ahead and take a look at what we got. I'm also going to bring up the web page because it does show you what your frame rates for the 3 runs were, and we'll see where it went. So right now we're starting at 44 degrees Celsius. Of course, our fan speed is at 20% on auto, and I did fix it since the last one, so you'll be able to see what the fan speed is. So let's go ahead and start running it, and we'll be back. Well, actually, let me start running it so you can see me running it and know that I'm actually doing it from here. Okay, so it's going to start the sequence and we'll be back. We're just about to the end of the 3-run sequence, and as soon as this ends, it's going to bring up the frames per second via the interface in a web page. So we'll take a look at that, but before we do that, I'm going to minimize it. We'll take a look at what the temperatures and the fan speed are, and we'll take a look at what the clock speeds are real quick. Hopefully we could catch them before they start to drop. So this should be done in a second here. So basically our GPU clock has already dropped. We're at 40%. Like I said, I mean, it does only go to 40%, and we're back down to 86 on our temperatures. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. Our first run, we had 48 frames a second as an average. Run number 2, we went down to 42.93. And run number 3, we went to 42.16, which dropped our average frame rate to 44.33. Now, some of you might be saying, well, that's not bad. Is it bad? Yes, because this is not within a margin of error. And when I show you tomorrow, because I can't divulge anything about the 780 Ti right now, when I divulge in the video and show you exactly how I did this in the 780 Ti video, which will be out tomorrow morning, you will see that there is no margin of error in there. Where the margin of error is maybe 0.5 of a frame, 0.7 of a frame. That's a margin of error. This is not within a margin of error. This is basically saying that over time, as your video card heats up, you're going to be losing frame rates. I'll go ahead and shut this down. I'm going to click close, and I'm going to bring up Heaven again while it's still hot, because I know that some of you naysayers are going to be telling me, well, you kept the fan at 20% on Unigen. No, I didn't keep the fan at 20%. As I said, for some reason the modulation and GPU tweak did stop working while we were going through the benchmark. The fan will go up to 40% as it starts heating up. So we'll go ahead and just take a quick look at it, and I'll bring GPU tweak up to the front so you can actually see it starting to rise. I don't want anybody saying that, oh, Paul, you did that on purpose, you wanted it to look bad, you wanted to see it drop for 5 frames in Unigen. No, I didn't. As I said again, and I will reiterate, for some reason the actual counter for the fan speed stopped working while we were benchmarking it. Right now we're up to 90 on the temperature of the GPU itself. As you can see, we're at 40% fan speed, and you will see that it will stay at 40% fan speed. Once it gets to 94, keep an eye down the bottom left now. You'll see it's at 1000. As soon as we go up to 94, the GPU clock is going to start to drop. Now, if it drops 50 megahertz, I've overclocked many of video cards. I've never really seen 50 megahertz make that much of a difference. Not even a frame sometimes. But when you're talking 200 to 250 megahertz, you're going to see a difference, and this card will drop. Right now we're down to 838. It'll go up and down, but once we start hitting a harder sequence, down to 841, you will actually see this GPU drop its clock and throttle it back to about 750. But in any case, as you can see, there's your 40, there's your 94, there's your GPU throttling. I just wanted to show everybody that it was at 40% and it did stop working, so nobody thinks that I left it at 20% so we could get it to start to throttle. Now we'll go ahead and go back to me being on the camera, and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, everybody, you think I forgot? No, I didn't forget. I just wanted to make sure that I could get the fan speed back down to 20. So right now we're on auto. It's at 20% fan speed, and my dog is going to go out his doggy door, so we're going to hear a big clunk here in a second. But in any case, we're at 20%. Hopefully you don't hear anything, which I really don't hear anything. We're going to go ahead and put it on on manual, sorry. I'm going to click apply. I'm going to bring it to 50% first. So here's what it's going to sound like at 50%. Now, this is 50%. You might not be getting it as loud as I hear it, but I mean, as you can see, it's pretty loud. Unfortunately, at 50% with this card, 50% is not going to keep it under 94 degrees Celsius. So it's still going to throttle down on you. It actually doesn't throttle, where I found on this specific card, it starts not throttling at about 63%. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it to 63% and let you start hearing that, but I will also let you hear it at 100%. So let's go ahead and go to 63. Click apply. Okay, that is 63%. Now just think, this is inside your case. Case fans going. As you can see, I have a Corsair H100. Right now I have it on silent. I'm using the program to keep it silent. I'm trying not to heat up my CPU, but it probably is. Now, inside of a case, I've actually had to set it to 71 degrees in order to keep it from throttling. So let's go ahead and put that at 71 on the fan speed. I will click apply. That's at 71. And now, just for the sake of argument, let's bring it up to 100%. Can you hear me talking, or do you hear the fan? And no, I'm talking the same volume that I was before. So let me raise my voice a little bit so I can talk over the fan, and now you see what I'm talking about. This thing cranks. If you have fans in your system, nobody's getting sleep at night. Be right back. All right, everybody. Just so you know, I'm not trying to slam AMD. They do make some decent video cards. And every video card has its purpose in this world. So this is not something I'm not lashing out at AMD. I'm just trying to show you, our viewers, some of the problems that AMD has with their 290X. Now remember, this card has a 290 watt TDP. It runs while gaming, and I don't care what game it is, I've got it to 94 degrees when I'm playing for more than 10 minutes. It throttles down to 750. I've actually seen it when, you know, I still live in Florida, so of course it's a little bit humid here. I've actually seen it go down to 725, the clock speeds. Do you want a video card that is going to be consistent, have good thermals, etc.? Yes. Now, just as a reference, I ran Battlefield 4 when it was cold. When it was cold, at 25 by 16, I got 46 frames a second, and that's with ultra settings at 25 by 16. When it was warm, and this is only after 5 minutes of play, 43.8. Let's look at Skyrim. Cold, 124.4. When it's hot, 115.7, and that's 25 by 16. As I said, you saw the Unigine benchmarks, you saw how low that went. We also did Battlefield 4 in 19 by 10. Cold, 74.4. Hot, after 5 minutes, 69. And with Unigine Heaven at 19 by 10, we went from 57.3 frames a second to 52.6. Of course, that was a bigger loss because technically the card got a little bit hotter. Maybe my room was a degree warmer. I don't know. But it seems like it was a bigger loss at the lower resolution. And believe me, usually the CPU is a little bit more involved when you're at a lower resolution. Not to say that at 19 by 10 there's a whole lot of CPU involvement, but considering we took the, at 25 by 16 we basically took the CPU out of the picture, that's a pretty big loss in performance. And this is the same for every other video game that I've played. The longer you play, the worse it gets. So for those of you who are using multiple monitors, i.e. Eyefinity, when you're in those higher resolutions, if you're at a frame rate that is acceptable with single frames, you're playing on ultra settings with a single monitor, once you start going to that dual and third monitor, you're going to take a very big performance hit, and the game might not be playable in Eyefinity because the card's going to heat up and it's going to throttle. Now, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Simon Hughes, who told me that it's 3 a.m. and not everybody in the world lives in America. Well, Mr. Hughes, I asked you that question at 11 o'clock in the morning my time in America. I'm not sure where you live. I'm probably thinking you live in the UK. And you still didn't answer my question. Do you have a 780 Ti? Because the comment that you made is that the 780 Ti runs hotter, it has a higher TDP, and it is louder than the 290X. Well, guess what, my friend? It's not. It has a 250 watt TDP. Max temp that I've gotten this to was 82 degrees, so it doesn't run hotter. And is it louder? Wait until you see the video tomorrow on this where I show it at 100%, and then you could tell me. So, sir, I'm glad you made your comments and you gave me the opportunity to answer those comments. And everybody, here is the 780 Ti. So make sure tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern, you go ahead and watch the video on this, and we'll also have a review at hightechlegion.com. I do want to say that this card is a lot quieter, does consume less power, and it doesn't throttle down either. Now you might get a little bit of throttling, but nowhere close. I think maybe I might have saw 30 to 40 megahertz, but you'll have to wait for the video to see. In conclusion, yes, manufacturers will be putting their own coolers and their own PCBs on this card, but just think about it. They put a bigger cooler to cool it down. It's going to up the TDP. So basically, they're going to put their cooler on the GPU. Your TDP is going to go from 290 to maybe 300, 310, depending on what it is. So you got more power consumption. The other problem is, look at it this way. If you notice, your lower end cards, when they give you an aftermarket card and they put the special coolers on, you're only getting maybe a $10 to a $25 increase in price. As you go up the stack, because they have to compensate for heat, etc., there might be a $50 difference between a reference board and an aftermarket cooled board by one of the manufacturers. Now I will say something. I've been approached by manufacturers. They asked me to review their reference boards. I refused because personally I don't want to have to slam one of the partners of AMD and say that their card is bad, because I know what capabilities they have in producing and making that formula a lot better than AMD did. Again, remember, visit us at hightechlegion.com, HITECH legion.com, for all your reviews. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Go ahead and like it. Why not? Subscribe. We've got a great Christmas contest coming up shortly. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/HTL Reviews. I will see you the next time, my friends. Stay thirsty. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.